Hi, welcome. We are Lifecycle Insights and Eureka Process. So I'm Marnie from Lifecycle Insights. And unfortunately, when we recorded this together the first time, I cut off the first 7 minutes. So the first intro I'm going to do solo, but then we will have Alan Edwards and Alex Farling joining us. So welcome to everyone. As you saw in the invite, we are not doing an April Fool's Day joke. We really are giving away an Oculus Quest 2. So one of you will be a lucky winner, and we will announce that tomorrow at noon. So keep an eye out for that. But we're talking about the 3 Ps of successful XBRs today. We'll get into the Ps in a second, but XBRs, what are they? They could be QBRs, but we find they're rarely done for everyone quarterly. So many people call them technical business reviews, TBRs, or strategic business reviews, SBRs. So really looking at how we can make an impact on those. So first, I will introduce our presenters. Alan Edwards, IT pro since 1994, former MSP owner that's actually doubled 2 other MSPs to a successful sale. And he is the founder of Eureka Process. And Alan, interestingly enough, will be talking about the first P, and Alex will be talking about the process piece, although they really do all blend together. Alex, a former MSP himself, sold it last year, and he is the co-founder of Lifecycle Insights. And is passionate about helping MSPs grow their business through the business review process. Also, you'll see on the call, Veronica Dunn from Eureka Process. And again, I'm Marnie from Lifecycle Insights. So we're going to jump right into the 3 Ps. They are people, process, and product. And then as we dive in, what we're really going to take a look at is the overlap, and where process, people, and product all overlap is a great successful QBR. But first, we're going to take a look at what happens if you only have overlap in 2 of the regions. So if you have people and process and you're missing product, how can you tell? What does that look and feel like? You will feel low achievement, no accountability, no results, because you don't have a scalable, consistent process to track to. So that is what it would feel like if people and process are dialed in, but then you're missing the product piece. If we had process and product, it feels robotic, low motivation, low innovation. So we've all had our LinkedIn messaging that is very automated, that just feels like a bot is out there chatting with us. Doesn't feel like it's from a person or for a person. If you have process and product with no human engagement or intent behind it, it feels very robotic and really doesn't get folks to buy into the system. What happens if you have people and product, but no process? Well, that doesn't feel good to work in that environment, because it feels it's uncertainty, feels very chaotic. You're just throwing things at the wall. It's lots of like putting lids on pots without getting the end result, because it's always an inconsistent, chaotic order. But if you really do get an overlap of all 3 of those, it's successful, right? It's scalable, it's supportable, and it's standardized. And that's really what we're going to talk about. So we're going to jump into a poll around this, and we'll get going.
T-shirt. So now we have the people plus product equals uncertainty and chaos.
I like it.
Yeah, we might have to patent that one before we get off this call.
Quick, go. All right, Marnie, we're going to do a little live poll. We have several of these coming up. Marnie, could you give people instructions so we can get some feedback?
Absolutely. So we will have a few of these. So get your phones or monitors ready. I'm sure you have 6 monitors in front of you. So one of them, you can go to swiftpolling.com, or you can use your cell phone to text your vote to 205-883-8760. And you're going to want to enter 14795 in order to participate in this poll. I'll pause for a second. Not my strength.
Yep. So keep this up. We'll have a few more of these throughout.
Yep. So again, once you enter 14795, then you're going to answer the question, which of these 3 areas do you need the most improvement in? So Alan and Alex, you guys each owned an MSP. What would you say was the area you wanted the most improvement in for yourself?
I think with us, it changed over time. We would get the people part dialed in, and then we'd go focus on process and product. And then we'd lose a person, and then we'd have to go back, and we were maybe challenging to work with because our people didn't. We had turnover. It took us a long time to find the right people who were going to hang out. Our average retention of somebody who lasted 6 months was somewhere upwards of 7 years, but a lot of folks flunked out in the first 3 or 4 months working for our MSP. So people was a regular struggle, but once we got the team, they stayed for a while. Then we had time to dial in process and product. Product was always a challenge.
Yeah,
And that is why you built Lifecycle Insights, right?
It was, but I also suffer from shiny thing syndrome too. So there were too many products sometimes for just for me chasing things around.
I think having exited my MSP in 2011, products was probably the biggest weakness for us. Just not as many existed. There weren't as many PSAs, as many RMM tools, and there certainly weren't any XBR tools. I had to wait 10 more years for Alex to invent that.
Fair.
All right, so process seems to be the front runner.
Yeah.
I did
If I get a deal for you.
poll
Yeah,
link
like-
out there, but I'm not sure if it's going to work.
What was that, Alex?
I said I did post the poll link in chat for those who are looking for it, but I'm not sure how well it'll work. We'll see. We'll see what happens
Yep,
with that.
just swiftpolling.com, code 14795, and we'll have a few more of these same instructions.
Perfect. All right. So I think here, Alan, I'm going to pass it over to you to do the people part.
Oh, people are everything, aren't they? How do we impact people? This is true for everything, but including in your XBR. One, communication is key. We always hear that. I've done surveys of MSP clients when I was an MSP looking for the right marketing tool. Number one thing people wanted was communication. They valued that more than price. They valued that more than speed. They just want to know you have the problem and what the plan is. Just tell me what's going on. So communication is key, especially when we're impacting internal people. Training, of course, is key. I'm going to show you why in a second. Metrics and KPIs are a way of creating accountability to set expectations like, hey, we have a number. We'd like you to hit a number. So that helps. And of course, it's a Venn diagram. Process and product are equally impactful to the people themselves, just as people are impactful to process and product. So let me tell you a little story about leaky bucket syndrome, LBS. It sounds just as bad as it
sounds terrible.
It is just as bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
So here's what LBS is. All right, so you train your new guy or an employee, or maybe your best employee trains the new guy, and you pass this bucket of knowledge on to them. Pretty standard onboarding, right? Help your people help train them. Well, over time, we're all human. We begin to do whatever it takes to close tickets. We make some tweaks and changes to our process. It feels more efficient or easier or better for the way we work, right? And then you keep expanding your team and you pass that knowledge on to the next person, who then passes it on to the next person. As you see, the bucket's getting lighter and lighter. Before long, now you're a good organization. Before long, even your red shirt guy's still doing a great job, but it's not the systems you put in place. It's not the processes you put in place. It's not the culture you wanted to give. It's now something completely different. That original knowledge is gone due to LBS. You don't want that illness.
So I'm going to just interrupt for a second, which I didn't tell you I was going to do. So I apologize. But what I have found when you get to that last guy in that bucket, all of a sudden, if you were using other products at the beginning, they may try solving some of their own problem with some shadow IT, I believe is the popular, like they're going and grabbing other things to solve their problems because they had lost some of the process and product in that leaky bucket. So sorry to interrupt, but I just—
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
It's a great example. And I want to say that this red shirt guy is not wrong or bad. It's human nature. He's still trying to solve clients and do the best thing for your clients. And that's okay. It's just not what you anticipated. So how do we fix it? Well, the basic answer is you put stuff back into the bucket constantly. Stuff, written processes, right? Because if you're reading your written process and following it, you're always getting the original source from the beginning again, drinking from the fountain of youth. Metrics and KPIs we talked about. If you know what you're held accountable to, you're always delivering those results and not meandering into different types of results. Training and coaching. That's what my little icon here represents. Training and coaching. Keep keeping that bucket full, going back to the well to refill the bucket again. And of course, tools can help put the training wheels on that you need in order to keep that bucket full. Like, oh, we use a tool. It has these buttons. It has these fields. So that always keeps it top of mind. And when you put all that together, you can repair your bucket and keep it full. It's almost a misnomer. I almost didn't put the little band-aids on the bucket because the bucket's going to leak. We're human, right? And
Well,
so we have to constantly fill it up.
yeah, but one of the things that I noticed in my MSP is you and I started having this conversation when we were prepping for this. I'd never heard leaky bucket syndrome put together so well. And actually, if you want to go forward to the poll, we can let them go through that while we just chat for a second. But I'd never heard it put together so well with a concept. I always knew it existed, but never really knew how to deal with it. But I also saw kind of an evolution in my own MSP where we had this thing that was, we adopted IT glue, and today folks are using Hoodoo or whatever product you're using for documentation. The first thing we did was put all our configurations in it, right? We had all our servers, we had all our workstations, then we went and stuck all our switches, our wireless access points, we took client site photos and put them in there, and we did all that, and it was great. We had a database of stuff, but we didn't really have documentation. And the next step was what you're talking about, which was building out those processes and procedures. And when we really started doing that and taking it seriously, we found that new people got up to speed a lot faster. And it actually kind of helped solve for our not being good at keeping new people around problem at my MSP. And we noticed that we started to have some retention of folks a little longer because we maybe were setting folks up for success instead of setting them up for failure. As we're fighting with the problem with the poll here.
Yeah. So it's kind of,
I see you're able to add to the poll when I tested this. All right, this poll is active now.
there we go.
Yay.
So it kind of reminds me of sort of also what is inspected is what is expected, right? So you can meet the expectations if you're looking at it. So if you've got the documentation, the KPIs that Alan was talking about, everybody's marching toward the same target. So folks are currently rating their business on the people part of XBRs.
Thank
So
you for the brave soul who put bad.
No, I appreciate it, right? Like if you know that, then hopefully there are already some takeaways from this. That's what I say every time we do a webinar. I really hope that everyone, regardless how mature and tuned in their processes are, that there's because any one new thing can make an incremental increase in your business. And so sometimes walking away with 37 action items is not even as
overwhelming
good as walking away with one solid one that's going to make an impact. So with each section, when we have each of the polls, the notion was like, all right, really reflect on where you are.
And along with every other IT process, you can't fix it until you've kind of taken an inventory of where you are. So where you are is where you have to start where you are. Iterative improvement from here. You'll go from bad to okay to good to great as long as you continue to work at it.
And notice that nobody listed great, so everybody has work to do. and a third of our attendees.
Apparently, Ray's not here.
And a solid third of our attendees say, okay, we're this is working for us. There's just room for improvement. So that's good.
Perfect.
Literally.
Yeah. Nice. So next we're going to take a look at how we impact process. So Alex, it's interesting because a process and our product work so closely together. This might get a little messier. Or hopefully you've got it so clearly defined. It won't.
Yeah, it does. There's kind of some blurred lines around what's process and what's product. But really, when you sit and think about it, your agenda is the big process, right? This is what we're going to do when we go to the meeting. It really is the outline, the guiding light for the meeting with the things we're going to cover, the reason your client is coming. That's the agenda. If people aren't coming, it's probably because your agenda sucks, right? You're going over the wrong things. You're not talking about things that deliver value to them. So if you have trouble bringing your clients to the table, it's a big conversation around, are we delivering the right things? Are we talking about the right agenda, the things that deliver value? But the agenda really, even though you're presenting it to your customer, it's the process. It's what do we have to prep for? What are we going to do in this meeting?
It's that tip of the iceberg. It's the thing that everybody can see and rally around. And it's almost where you have to start so you can find the iceberg and then dig into the roots and see what else has to happen.
Yeah. And then, the rest of the pieces around this are some discovery, and those really have to be processized so that we know that we're doing the same discovery every time we do this, because we won't get the same result if we don't put in the same work. So we need to have a process around discovery, both human discovery and data discovery and network scans. So, at my MSP, we use Network Detective. There's cool tools out today. Cyber CNS has a pretty slick network scanner. So as the tools continue to get cooler, you guys will continue to upgrade and get cooler, better stuff like the Snapple commercials. But you're going to have to continue to iteratively improve those processes so that you still get the same outputs or better outputs. And the human discovery, to just taking a little step back to that, is super important. This is where we go sit with our customer and talk about what's changed in your business, what's changing in your industry. Are you growing? Are you shrinking? Are we adding people? Are we downsizing? Is there new grant money coming that we need to know about? What's going on in your business?
One more opportunity to involve people in the process, because those three things are inexorably linked.
And that human discovery really should be laid out. It needs to be a process. Like, we ask the same questions, we go through the same phases of discovery to make sure that we don't miss anything. And then your deliverables, of course, they need to be, we need to be delivering the same thing every time we do this. One of the biggest problems that our MSPs have when they come to Lifecycle Insights is that their QBR process is in one guy's brain and it doesn't scale. So if we build a scalable process for QBRs, guess what? It doesn't matter if I'm doing it, if Marnie's doing it, if Alan's doing it, we can all deliver the same end result to our customer, which helps them align with our standards and practices and give them a more secure and stable environment to work from on their client network. And then, of course, the presentation, we want to make sure that that's very standardized, that we have documented how that's supposed to be put together so that it's C-level focused, everything's in the right order, the supporting documentation's at the end, the actionable stuff is in the front. And that you're actually delivering something that rings true to your C-levels, as opposed to something that goes to your goes too technical or too nerdy, so that you're going to lose people in the conversation.
Our audience probably thought that the process slide would be ours to talk about, but no. I mean, process is everything that we do, but Alex and his team, by necessity to invent the tool, they had to have the process to wrap the tool around.
And it's been an iterative process. It's again, we're back to that cycle of continuous improvement. The QBR that we recommend today is not the one we recommended 2 years ago when we launched this thing. I mean, we've gotten feedback from our partners, we've learned from the community, we've improved ourselves, and so it continues to evolve and get better.
Let's look at this agenda.
Yeah, this slide's just a sample agenda. We will send it out with the oh, we're sending it out already. I was going to say we'll send it out with the email follow-up, but
I will also do that. But
Yep.
if anybody wants to read the fine print, it's
Yep.
right there.
But this is a good starting point agenda. It comes from, if anybody's read Traction, it is kind of modeled after the Traction Level 10 meeting, although it's not an exact model of that because those are really designed to be mostly internal meetings. But it very closely mirrors that. You'll notice if you go look at the download, or if your eyes are really good, the entire front section of metrics, your KPIs or whatever, your scorecard information is all listed as optional. We have MSPs who insist on delivering this kind of content. If you've heard me on my soapbox before, you know I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it's actionable. I don't think it's strategic. I think it could be an email. And if it could be an email, it probably takes away the value of these kind of strategic meetings. So, that's kind of my take on those. And then I want to go into my favorite conversation around agenda, which I've recently termed it landmine hunting. And so sending over your agenda ahead of time to your client is the most important step in your QBR process. If you send the client this agenda, number one, it shows them value. It shows them that you've put in time and energy. You're actually presenting something. You're not just going to meet with them to chew up their time. It should have enough on it to get them engaged, but not enough to deliver the value so that they don't want to see more. But also it gives them the opportunity to have feedback so that they feel engaged and invested in the meeting. They're going to say, hey, here's the things I want to talk about. And when they do, this is when we go landmine hunting. If I want to talk about a service ticket issue or an SLA issue or a product issue is going to take over your strategic meeting, you need to submarine that early. You need to kill that off. And so what we always tell everybody is if something's tactical, if something's operational, if it could be handled in a ticket and you get it back on your agenda from your client, the first thing you should do is pick up the phone. Mr. Customer, your satisfaction on this issue is too important for me to wait. I want to get this knocked out right now. We can still have our meeting in 2 weeks and address the rest of the stuff, right? And this takes the customer satisfaction issue, the tactical thing, the thing that was going to derail your meeting, it takes it off the plate, and it gives you the leverage of going in, going, hey, I've already fixed something for you. You're already before 2 weeks before the meeting, you're already in a better place. Now I'm coming in, you're happy with me because I solved your problem, and we can have a constructive meeting. So I think the agenda really drives towards that. We actually learned this trick from one of our beta partners when we first started building Lifecycle Insights, and it really changed the way I did QBRs with my MSP.
It's revolutionary. I will add, as a EOS implementer, one of the beauties of a traction style format, or in this case, a tightly defined and timed format, is you're showing the customer that you value their time by starting on time, ending on time, and sticking to the agenda. It feels more action packed, and they're more likely to open up your schedule for you, knowing, oh, it's only an hour and 15 minutes, or oh, it's only an hour, versus an open-ended conversation that goes on for 2, 3, 4 hours. I've definitely accidentally had a few of those in my early days.
Yeah, and sometimes your first one with a client is just going to be that long meeting, right? And we need to prep them for that. But as you get them dialed in, you can, with an agenda and by sticking to it, we can nail these down in an hour, hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes.
In the same way that you always remember the first thing and last thing that you were taught, you also always feel the first or last thing that you remember in an experience, right? So in land of customer satisfaction, if the last 2 weeks have been nothing but responsiveness and immediate feedback and making them happy, that is the state they're coming into versus angry.
And Kirk mentions wrapping up with setting the next calendar event, which is a
100%.
That's so awesome.
Page 2 of this absolutely has that. We only screenshotted page 1.
Yeah, page 2 actually has some action items and follow-up things. So those are always great. So then the other piece that we've really included in here in the in the process piece is the risk assessment. And the reason that I put the risk assessment here instead of down in the product piece is because I really felt like, what's that?
I said, is that the human discovery?
Well, it's not. It's this is your best practice. This is your process for delivering a really good, stable experience for your customer. If your customer scores green all the way down this list, guess what? They have a secure, stable, reliable network. They're in a good place. They're supportable when they call your help desk. They ultimately probably have a pretty good experience. If they're red all the way down here, they're not following your process, and they're probably having a pretty miserable experience, and they probably don't like you very much. So IT is probably a 4-letter word in their building. So when we talk about the risk assessment, the risk assessment is really one of those things that it should be based around, even if you're going for a NIST framework or one of the CMMC type frameworks, you need to modify it enough that the right answers, the green answers, still drive the customer back to your MSP's best practices, including products and services. So don't get so focused in the NIST, don't get so focused in the CMMC that you forget to say, and you should be using my favorite product for cloud managed switches so that we can get visibility into your network and knock down problems early and easily, right? You want to make sure that along the way, you're still recommending that most supportable experience, because that's the part of your process that makes you easy to support. And kind of a quick story, months after I sold my MSP, my favorite customer, my biggest customer, who was my first commercial customer, I had him for 17 years, called me and said, the new MSP is doing some stuff that we're not sure we like. We're getting kind of we're worried because they're not telling us the same stuff you used to tell us. Would you just have a conversation with us? And I went to the new MSP owner and said, look, they called me. I'd like to have this conversation if you're okay with it. He cleared it. We went ahead and had the conversation. And what they came to me and said was, they want me to do things that you didn't want us to do. They want me to do things different. They're trying to sell us this, this type of gear, and you sold us this other type. And I said, what you're suffering from here is I sold you what my MSP was able to support. The company that bought us was 9 times bigger than us. They have, for every one tech I had, they have 9 who are trained in these other products. So if you call the help desk configured the way we configured you, they're going to struggle to support you. You're going to get slower response times. You're going to get engineers who are learning on the fly. So you really need to realize the difference between a good practice and a supportable practice. And you guys need to listen to them and follow their advice and go towards the product and service that they can support. And yes, they're going to take you out of my anti-spam product and put you into theirs. It's not that one's any better than the other, but they know where to find the buttons when they log into that one. So it's just kind of an interesting conversation to have. And I think supportability is a conversation that MSPs struggle to really have with their customers sometimes. And it really sometimes just boils down to, we will be able to give you the best experience if you stick with the products that are in our preferred product stack.
Every client I have met who has moved towards standardization and prioritizing supportability ends up with more profitable, happier
Oh
clients.
yeah, it excellently makes you money. That's great. Right. We
Why
have
not
happier
do it?
customers and we make money.
The
Yeah.
byproduct of this will be additional sales. So
Yep.
suffer through.
Yep. Absolutely. So Alan, you want to push us forward through there? And I guess we get one
Let's see if
more
I can
poll.
start the poll this time.
Let's see if it'll work this time. So how would you rate your part on your business on the process part of it? And we really, it's one of the first questions that Alex and I ask when we talk to, new folks about, their process is it undefined? I always talk about the process maturity model. Is it undefined and everybody is just every man for themselves? Is it manual? This is the part that Alex and I that I'm fascinated with. I don't know if Alex is. I try to convince.
Well, I mean, it's something that I think we were probably, it's the area where we excelled at my MSP, right? We had the process. We knew what a business review was supposed to be. We had it dialed in, and we were missing this next step, which is the product, which meant I knew what I had to do.
But it was slow.
It took me forever. I mean, the first night that you asked me if I had any ideas for a product to build, I went, "Oh my God, I spent 7 hours today building a QBR deck." Yeah. Yes, God help me, right? And that was kind of where I came from. There was that we knew what we had to do. We just had to pull data from so many different places, put it together, try and make it pretty, that it was just super time consuming.
So
Micah says we need a not applicable, and I'm interested in hearing that. Is not applicable because you're not doing
do you mean
QBRs?
no process at all? Is what
Right.
That would qualify as bad, I think, Micah.
Yeah. So what
We're
Alex
working
was
on it.
talking about is his process at the time was very digital, because the first words you said to me when we had that conversation was like, I'm cobbling it together from spreadsheets and PSAs and all of this other piece, versus really the next way to move your business to the next step is really automating, right? So there's a difference between digital, having the information someplace on the computer, versus automated, where the computer is doing the work for
Which is
you.
why I hate this buzzword around digital transformation, because I think it's a terrible buzzword.
It's a little dangerous in the IT business because everything is digital, but that doesn't mean it's most efficient and it's automated.
Yeah, when we say notepad, we don't actually mean a notepad. We mean
Well, Marnie does. Marnie absolutely means notepad.
oh. What is that stuff?
That is a true statement.
So I note that in our first survey, where people needed the most work at between people, process, and product, they went toward process, and we're definitely skewed a little more on the bad side for the process piece. I mean, I conjecture that the only way, Alex, you were able to make Lifecycle Insights is because you had the process down. You knew what you had to go implement in a tool. I know Veronica and I right now are working on a web video series, and we're trying to edit it. And we're having the hardest time because we didn't actually have a process that we wanted to embody. We just did it. So you got to go back and build that framework and that skeleton so that the product can work for you.
Yeah. Yep.
It's how you define the requirements, right? If we had tried to build the product without Alex being able to explain it clearly in the way it needed to function, would not have been able to create it. So
yeah, absolutely. And we knew exactly where we were going with it. We knew exactly what mark we wanted to hit, and which led us to being able to build a product.
And if one of the things you can talk about, Alex, on this is how really you can't use the product to force your process. You need to have your process so that you get the power of the product.
Well, yeah, and the first bullet point really drives that point home.
Yeah.
Because our first iteration of this product, when we went live to our beta testers, did not have our data quality module in it. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Lifecycle Insights reaches into your PSA solution, into IT Glue, into Microsoft 365, pulls information back, puts it together in nice, clean reporting, and presents it in a fashion that you can put it in front of your customers. What we found the first time through was that the big fancy MSP, who I really felt, I had a lot of admiration for the guy that ran it. They were a very mature shop. I expected them to just be the absolute kings, had data quality that was as bad or worse as anybody's out there. So what we've noticed is that the tools that we have don't necessarily encourage process. And I tell the same story often, as an MSP owner, you have a new switch come in that you need to deliver to a customer. You hand it to an engineer. You go, of your 7 tickets today, one of them is to deploy this switch, get it delivered to the client, right? They put it under their arm, they sneaker net it out the door, they go run it down to the client, they slam it in the rack, they plug some cables in, they go, oh, got to document it, right? Your tech's doing what he's supposed to do. Your process is document, great, he's going to document it. And he opens up IT Glue, he sees 37 fields, and he goes, I only need 4 of those. And so he puts in the IP address, he puts in the password, he puts in the make and model, and he leaves. No purchase date, no warranty expiration date, no useful information as far as location or anything like that. And so what we're going to do in our product, and what we do in our product, is we take that new data and then we score it, and we say, there are fields missing that we know your C-level executives are going to care about, like how old is this thing, that we will actually that we'll actually present to you. And Alan asks about a Hoodoo integration. Alan, they're on our radar. I won't say that there's anything promised or dialed in at this point, but we're definitely interested in them. We're hearing that name more and more. So, you know, the product has to solve for some of the problems that are missing or that are manual in just your process. So the product really is the tool that moves the process along. And we say quite often when we talk to new customers at Lifecycle Insights, there's not a lot that we do that you couldn't do yourself. It would take you a whole lot longer, but you could do it yourself. You could take all your serial numbers out to Dell's website, and you could look them up, and you could go key them back into ConnectWise and put in your purchase dates. And you could go through all these. You could build budgets by hand. And I know MSPs that have been doing it, and they're not quite as accurate as they ought to be because they have bad data quality, and they're not as flexible. They can't just go, oh, let's make it a quarterly budget. Let's make it an annual budget. Let's do 6 quarters or 8 quarters. So it's very manual, where in a product, you can click a button and you can change the setting and spit out another budget. Projects are one that's very, very tough to do manually. You know, it's a scope of work. It's trying to align the what's broken risk-wise to any kind of pain and tying that into cost. It really becomes troublesome when you're doing all of this in different spreadsheets, trying to pull it all together. In a tool, you can check a couple of boxes, pull everything together, and we do a really slick job in our product of pulling together. And this is one of the things that kind of everybody lights up when they see it in the demo. You know, we take a project and we say, we're going to build a project to fix out-of-date operating systems, and we're going to go grab all the PCs that are associated with it and list them on the project along with the failed assessment item that says we're still running Windows 7 in our environment. And we're going to go show the client, hey, for $10,000, you're not just getting 6 new workstations, but you're getting all of this red and all of these problems solved. So we can account for that spend and really give the customer almost a reward for their spend. And that helps with the psychology of the buying experience. We can build out a project roadmap, obviously something you can do manually. But if we already have a list of all your projects, why not just click a button and get a project roadmap? And then supporting documentation. This is the stuff that I say when we go through and actually build the process so that we're all doing it the same way. The front of your presentation to your client is the executive summary. It's the quick and easy stuff. It's the risk reports and the projects and the budget. In the back, though, you're going to have a list of all their contracts and subscriptions that you included in the budget, and maybe even some place where you can add a couple more manually, handwrite them down to bring them back to the next meeting. You're going to have a list of all their users and all their Microsoft licensing. We're going to be tracking assets and configurations. Part of every single industry compliance out there is, are we doing an inventory of both users and of IT devices? If we're not compliant with PCI, we're not compliant with HIPAA, we're not compliant with NIST, we're not compliant with anything. So all of that needs to be done, and it needs to be prepared and sent to your client on a regular basis so that you have proof that you've done it.
So to state the opposite for a point,
yeah,
the tool cannot be your process. The tool is an embodiment and an automation of your process.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because if I gave you this tool without the process, you can make a heck of a spaghetti mess out of it, right? And one of the things that folks have been asking us for, probably the biggest thing that we've been asked for in the last year, Marnie, is something we're just about to release, which is a report builder. And those of you who know us, we've talked about it a lot. That's going to allow leadership to standardize the reporting and say, I want my reports to come out in this order, formatted like this. And now, no matter who does the work, the process has been applied to the tool, and we'll get the same result every time. So to Alan's point, if we can apply the process to the tool, we can help to streamline it a little bit.
Very good.
But you've got to have that process to do it. Quickly, these are just some of the reports that we talk through. So obviously, the top, well, not very obvious because it's kind of tiny print, but the top right corner is one of our project presentations. So this is where we can go to a client and actually present and say, hey, the risks, bottom right, bottom left red, are going to be the things that we're going to be able to solve for. You know, the out-of-date operating systems, the aged machines, all that info is there to give our customer a reason why they're making the spend. We have a couple different ways to present budgets and contracts and subscriptions and some of this, but if you notice, it all comes out similarly formatted, similarly colored. So instead of trying to cobble it all together yourself and make it look like it all came out of one reporting package, we're going to give you all of that kind of tailored to your business. And we've even got MSPs redoing all the coloring and building it out to match their needs. So if blue's not your favorite color, if your MSP loves fuchsia, you know, obviously you can come in here and make some changes and some edits and get what you're looking for.
That wasn't derogatory toward fuchsia, was it?
No, maybe. Fuchsia's not my favorite color.
Okay.
And last but not least, of course, you know, there's a few things that we need to build into the tool that come from your process, right? We're finalizing our deliverables, so we're actually going out and making sure that anything that we need to follow up on. So this is back to Kirk's point. We should have some deliverables when we end this. One of those is going back and scheduling our next call. So our scheduler sits right at the top. Some of your deliverables may be coming back and creating tickets, sending your customers reminder emails for things that they're supposed to do. Hey, you know, they were going to get me a copy of their voice over IP and their ISP contract so I could show them in the next budget. We want to remind them of that and send them something. So coming back and documenting all of that, obviously, you know, falls into your process, but it needs to be entered back into your product, whether it's our product or whether it's going back into a ConnectWise or a Synchro or something like that, if it's ticket type work.
Well, and when you say the other piece of this is really, you know, the title of this is the 3 Ps of successful XBRs, because we never know if we should call them QBRs or TBRs or SBRs, right? But the problem with quarterly is not everybody needs them quarterly. So really to take a look and segment your client base into what the process should be for a high touch client, a mid touch client, or a tech touch client, right? You can differentiate that here so you know how often those touches should be and what the process looks like for each of those levels.
Yep.
One of the great things I have found about using Lifecycle Insights versus some other products is I am not an MSP. I am using Lifecycle Insights to perform SBRs in my case to my clients. You know, we had our process. I started doing it. I'm like, hey, Marnie, can I use your tool? And Marnie's like, what's your process? Is like, would you believe I actually have one? Here it is.
I would believe that. Yes.
Yeah.
And say, oh yeah, and so I mean, sure, we're not using all the features ourselves, but Lifecycle Insights was able to bend to my will because I have a process. I can tell it what I want. I now get really cool green and red reports. I can see across my customer base. Is there an area that most of my clients are struggling with, or is there a client who is struggling in general? I love that green red chart.
And those kind of analytics come from having a tool that can do some of that business analytics. You know, the other thing about the tools is that once you start to get this stuff in the tools, now you can delegate too, right? If Alan goes and looks and says, hey, all of my clients are struggling with this particular process, well, guess what? Now he can get his team involved and go, hey, Veronica, go fix this process and it'll help all of my team. Or, you know, as an MSP, if you go, hey, you know what, we're failing a lot of our clients on endpoint backups, we can go develop a new solution, work it into our process and start to sell that across all of our clients. But all of this doesn't have to be done by one human being anymore. And the beauty of having the product and the process together is that now you're enabling the ability to scale across the people.
I love it.
And get the same result.
Another poll. So here, how do you rate on the product part of your XBR? Do you have one? Do you have 4? Should you maybe consolidate?
Process creep is a real thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I've definitely come into some clients. Alex, you even mentioned documenting client assets. Too many fields or too many ways to do it with processes. I mean, the people who think they're doing it right and process for everything, they create processes, and then they're not connected or there's 8 of the same. And I think that's also where tools can help, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's a fine line between over documented and causing your staff to stop thinking because you've tried to document every possible scenario, and under documented, right? We want to document well enough that people can get the same result twice, but not so highly documented that people stop learning how to think outside the box, looking for the problem that may arise. There was a conversation on Facebook, it's either Facebook or Tech Tribe, and I can't remember now, but about, do you want your engineers to think outside the box when a call comes in, or do you want them just to solve for the problem that's listed in the trouble ticket? And there was a little bit of back and forth with some MSPs saying, I'm going to have my engineer solve exactly what's in the trouble ticket every time, and train the customer to ask for to ask for the fix that they really want. And my flip side to that, and I was 100% on the other side of that, is we need to understand our customers. We need to work to understand our customers, and that is part of the service that we deliver. But we need to have a process that kind of has a step in it that says, if I solve for what they ask for, is it going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
I would be curious in chat or in the Q&A panel. I'm having more difficulty deciphering this layout of data. So what are people thinking when they say that their product is okay? Does it mean they have one they don't use? Does it mean they have the wrong tool?
Right. They maybe if they're missing one, is that bad? Or yeah, good question.
So feel free to weigh in and chat and such. And I assume the great one just has Lifecycle insights and they use it all the time.
No, I think that's a very fair question.
All right. So Marty, do we want to start doing our little wrap up slides and prepare people for Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got just a couple closing slides, and then Alan's exactly right. If you have questions for us, please absolutely put them in the chat, because we want to get all of your questions answered. So again, today, the 3 Ps of a successful XBR, people, process, and product. And we also want to give you ways to get in touch with us if you want conversations around this.
And what does XBR mean again?
XBR would be your QBR, your TBR, your SBR. I even heard EBR the other day for executive business review.
Executive business review, I've heard that one.
And then there was a CBR for, oh, now I'm going to forget it. It wasn't common.
Oh, chat's disabled. We're mean.
Hey, use the Q&A feature. My bad. This is what I get for not letting Marnie run the show like she's supposed to.
Oh yeah.
But thank you for pointing that out, Alan.
Wherever Alan will let you put your questions in there, please. Yeah. Go ahead to the next slide there, Alan. We are indeed giving away an Oculus Quest 2. So that is not an April Fool's Day joke. And there might be some swag in the box with that Oculus Quest. So be ready for that. We will announce that tomorrow at noon on our social media. So if you are not, oh, look, Alan's got one right there.
Mine. This is not yours.
I was gonna say, I know that one's not because it's already boxed up, ready to go. So
that is Alan's that he uses for his VR business reviews.
So you can find us on Discord, Reddit, Tech Tribe, Twitter, right? Like Facebook. So follow us someplace.
We're pretty much everywhere.
Find in all the same places.
My mission is to be everywhere.
Yeah, we are working on that.
If you find somewhere that we're not, please let us know. We try to be where you are.
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
I was gonna say, if you find us someplace we're not, I really don't even want to know anymore.
One more thing to go put in your active campaign. So I just put in the chat a link to a conversation with us. If you're interested in just having a chat around your process, we are more than happy to have a non-sales chat about like where you are and where you want to be. We're also happy to do a demo, and we do have a free 30-day trial. So I put the link to our calendar chat, Veronica, if you want to grab yours as well, which is what is listed on this slide. So Alan.
Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share to give us full screen video if that's okay.
Yeah.
And we'll handle Q&A.
Yeah, so Micah's got a great question, and I think we're going to steal someone else's rule of thumb for this because I think they nailed it. Chartech has a pretty good answer for this, and it's I'll call it the 90% rule. 90% of the time it's probably right, which is for every $1,000 a month a customer spends, I would expect to meet with them once a year. So a $1,000 a month customer is going to get an annual business review. A $4,000 a month customer is going to get a quarterly business review. A $2,000 a month customer might get semi-annual. So this is how we're going to break it up. If you got a $10,000 a month customer, they're probably someone who you're going to meet with monthly. And at that cadence, your business review probably needs to be different for that client, simply because going over expired assets every month. Going over a full risk review every month is probably not effective. You probably need to break it down, do your risk review quarterly, and talk about where we are on the in-betweens. But I would say that $1,000 rule is very, very good, with the exception that at the end of your business reviews, it never hurts to occasionally check back with your customer and say, did I deliver value today? When they say yes, hopefully they're going to say yes. If they don't say yes, the next question is easy. What did you need to see that I didn't deliver for you today? What could I do better or different? But then the follow-up to that is, I have you set on a quarterly cadence. Does it make sense for us to do this again in 3 months or 6, right? And get the customer feedback, give them 2 choices. If they tell you how often they want to meet, guess what? They're about 1,000 times more likely to want to show up because it was their idea.
I love letting people have my way.
That's a great one. What technology tooling stack do we recommend? You mentioned a couple of documentation platforms. Any others you support really well? So IT Glue is the only documentation platform that we actually have an integration with. I don't recommend tools to MSPs because, and it goes into something that we learned early on with Lifecycle Insights, which is a tool like ours can be used can serve one of 2 masters, right? It can be the tool that is a delivery platform for something else that I sell. And there's tools out there that literally are a delivery platform for you to buy warranties, or a delivery platform for you to purchase coaching or something like that. Our tool is not that. Our tool is a tool designed to allow you to bring what makes your MSP unique, a little bit of your MSP DNA, but organize it, deliver it in a thoughtful fashion, and save you time in doing so. So we really don't. We work well with ConnectWise. If you're not an IT Glue partner, we can get most of the same data out of ConnectWise that we can get out of IT Glue. We have a lot of different ways to solve for the same problem. So not being an IT Glue shop doesn't put anybody at a disadvantage in our tool. But we are looking at products like Hoodoo and those kind of things. Today it's Synchro, IT Glue, Autotask, and ConnectWise. Sorry, Marnie, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so Micah just asked, how does the automated parts work with non-integrated platforms for things like serial numbers, for example? So right now you do have to have one. Go ahead and list them again.
Yeah. So Synchro, ConnectWise, Autotask, and IT Glue are where we can pull all those assets from. If you don't have one of those tools, you probably should reach out directly and we'll have another conversation. There are ways around it, but it's a little clunky. So there's probably a bigger conversation to be had.
And we really do take feedback on which integrations to build next. So we'd love to hear, like, I'm interested in your tool, but I use, so that we can share that with the product team.
We're hearing the Hoodoo comment more and more.
I hear that a lot lately as well, just in general being used. Marnie, are you guys on TikTok?
We are not on TikTok, although my daughter has forced the issue a couple of times. So you can hunt.
We're not on TikTok or Clubhouse
or MySpace. Yeah,
and those 2 are by design. As security conscious folks, we're not in those 2 places. I think we've answered Micah's questions. And Micah, feel free to come give me a shout if you want to talk through a specific use case. And Alan Miller mentions says that we've mentioned LionGuard as a source of good, clean info in the past. We have a great experience when we meet with a LionGuard partner. They do such a good job of plugging the holes in a lot of folks' documentation. Synchro partners and LionGuard partners typically come to us in the best place where data quality is concerned. And that's because obviously Synchro is a PSA and RMM built together. It's all one tool. So there's nothing to get lost in integrations and pass-throughs. And LionGuard just does a phenomenal job of running around and cleaning up behind poor engineer documents.
So to be clear,
they're coming to us cleaner. We don't integrate with them. Yeah.
Correct. We don't integrate to them. But it updates ConnectWise or IT Glue, and
so LionGuard updates the tools that you do integrate with.
Correct. Yep.
All right, Valentino has a good question.
How do you protect MSP and their client from hackers?
So you do. Our tool is designed with a couple of things in mind. We have your traditional MFA and security settings. Permission, user groups, permissions, all that kind of stuff. We also don't take any information that we would deem as sensitive. So we don't hold anything that we would see as sensitive. No IP addresses, no passwords, none of the information that you guys would see as protected information. That stays in your ConnectWise, it stays in your Synchro, your IT Glue, wherever you normally would store it. Our integrations are all designed around least privilege. So we take everything with the intent of not getting a hold of information that we shouldn't have, so that we are less likely to be a breach point for an MSP. Additionally, by using a tool like ours, you're running regular risk assessments, you're having better conversations with your customers, you're probably selling more of the right products and services, and your clients are probably in a better shape for the experience of using us, but not because of anything that our platform specifically does.
Fair.
Who is bringing back hosted options? That is an interesting conversation.
Even though the self-hosted is a lot of the appeal to Hoodoo for many
It
industries.
is for a lot of the folks who have government contracts or other issues. Self-hosting is an interesting one.
But good to have options.
Yep.
And Kirk added some, MSP standards themselves, right? Training, prevention, remediation conversations with the client, cyber liability insurance, et cetera. How does your platform hold up to the CMMC or NIST in terms of being able to give an assessment, or?
Yeah, I assume that's what Jeff means. So we do have some templates in there for NIST 800 and a couple of those kind of things. You can build your own template, so you can bring any template that you want.
Oh,
obviously,
this is back to the presentation. I mean, NIST and CMMC are a process.
Yep.
You have to have that process defined or defined for you in this case.
Yep. But that said, if you have to be CMMC level 3, CMMC level 4, one of these certifications that really requires a lot of evidence being captured and stored, some of that evidence can be the exact kind of information you wouldn't want to put in a system like ours. You would want to have a real GRC platform to be doing some of that. If you're doing CMMC level 1, where you don't have to have the really sensitive evidentiary requirements, you can run it through our system all day long, and it's a great place to do it. For the folks who are doing the higher end ones, our tool typically is something that's used on a maintenance cycle in between the annual or semi-annual or whatever the CMMC or NIST cadence is. It's more of a preparedness and readiness tool than it is the actual delivery tool. And as far as built-in security, yeah, we have Valentino, we have an entire link on the website to our security policy. Everything we do is hosted in AWS. We're following enterprise AWS security standards. In fact, all of our developers come out of the enterprise environment. And we do due diligence, Q&A type stuff with partners as they request it. So if you have some security concerns, by all means, go to the website, click on Contact Us, and we can address any vendor due diligence that you have. But we're an open book as far as that goes. We're not shying away from the security questions.
Perfect. Well, I think we are complete with questions, which is good, and right at the end of time. So I like when those two things coincide. I'm sure it feels good to the process people to have an hour-long webinar that ends after an hour.
59 minutes, we're good to go.
So thank you all again. Tomorrow at noon, check us out on some version of social media, and we will find out who wins the Oculus Quest. And hopefully, we really do hope that you walked away with at least one takeaway, but it'd be great if you walked away with a takeaway in how to impact people, process, and product for your business reviews. And we would look forward to chatting with anybody. So thanks so much. And till the next time.
Thanks, everybody.